So one of my favorite things to do is to cook yummy things, bake things for other people. It's one of my most relaxing things. Last week, Tim used an illustration with a power drill. And I thought I would just balance out the universe a little bit, bow to gender stereotypes. Today we're going to be talking about baking a cake. And we're going to be talking about baking a compassion cake. And we're going to use this baking of a cake image with the idea of what does it look like for us to form ourselves, to organize our lives, to live compassionately. That's what we're talking about today. Now, for this little inspiration, I sometimes go online, I sometimes sort of find out recipes, and I thought, well, I'm going to Google crazy cakes. So let's look at a few crazy cakes. First one there, not so crazy, but definitely the autumnal theme, which is lovely. Okay, next one. Love it. Amazing. Inspiring. Okay, for all you guys who are totally stoked for the next 3 Star Wars movies, that's for you. Amazing, right? Like, how amazing is that? All right, this one's just plain weird. Is it a wedding cake? Is it the wedding dress? Is it a little bit of both? Are you supposed to go up to a woman dressed in the dress and take a piece of the cake? I don't understand it. It's strange. All right, I know it says Happy Birthday, Jesus, but who does that really look like? I mean, that's Bruxy, if I've ever seen a picture of Brux. Okay, now on this Jesus-themed cake, we've got this one. Now, I don't know about you, but that creeps me out a little bit. Are we supposed to actually slice into Jesus' forehead? Like, I'll have a piece of his nose, and I got his eyeball. Like, it's weird. It's super weird, but it's a fantastic illustration for us. Because if we want to bake a compassion cake, if we want our lives to look like compassion, then the shape of our lives is going to take the shape of Jesus. So pull out your notes because we're going to be asking ourselves 4 key questions today, and you can see those in your notes. The first question is, what type of ingredients and baking pan do I need? So we've got some ingredients and some baking pans. The ingredients here, the batter, okay? This is sort of the stuff of our lives. My time, my money, and my attention. The things that if we want to build and live a compassionate life, these are the 3 main areas. And some of you may say, well, I have a few different things we could be added to this list, and that's fair, and that's fine. I think for myself, as I boil everything down, they usually fall into these 3 categories. My time, my attention, and my money. And that is represented in the batter. But what I am more interested in today is actually the form that the batter gets poured into. So we've got some baking tins here. We've got a round baking tin, a square baking tin. This is my favorite for making brownies. And then we've got a star-shaped tin, okay? And we've got a muffin tin. Now, for the purposes of today's illustration, we're going to say that this muffin tin represents the shape and the values of this world. The stuff that the world values. Our possessions, our power, our comfort, our image, okay? Represented by the muffin tin. And the star-shaped tin is reflective and representative of Jesus, the values that he has for our life, the Jesus-shaped life, okay? So that's what we're going to be using. So we have a pretty good sense, and you'll see a circle image in your notes, right? We have the ingredients, and we have to pour our ingredients into something, into Jesus and our relationship with him. The reality is I can pour batter into this muffin tin and I can pour batter into the star-shaped tin. But as I bake, there is no way that the muffin-shaped batter will look like the star-shaped batter. There's no possible way that the star-shaped batter as it bakes will come out looking like a muffin shape. It's just absolutely impossible. And I don't know about you, but I have the feeling in my life as I think about my time, my money, and my attention, I have this feeling where I will pour a little bit into sort of the things that the world values. I'll pay attention to my image, my possessions, the things that make me comfortable. And then I'll sort of pour things into Jesus. I'll say, Jesus, I want you to have my time and my possessions and my money. And I sort of have this fractured life. And Jesus is saying, the full, abundant life that I have created you for, that I've designed you for, is for all of you to be poured into me. Okay? You see that in your first question. Second question, what happens when I bake in Jesus? Now, Matthew 25 gives us a fantastic look at this. It's the words of Jesus. He's talking to his disciples, and he basically says, at the time of judgment, there will be two types of people. Let's call them sheep and goats. The sheep will know me. They'll recognize my voice. They've cozied up to me. The goats, they won't, and they'll be on the outside. And then Jesus goes on to say, and you'll see this on the slide, for I was hungry and you fed me. He's talking to the sheep here. For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me. I tell you the truth, when you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. When we bake in Jesus, when we pour our time and our money and our attention into him, and we bake in him, we are transformed, and we start seeing things the way Jesus sees them. We start hearing things the way Jesus hears things. We start paying attention to the things that Jesus pays attention to. Over and over again, we see Jesus in the Gospels, whether he's getting out of a boat or he's walking into a village, he sees people and he has compassion on them, and he doesn't stay at arm's length. He goes to them. He meets their need. As we bake in Jesus, we become changed and transformed into more like him. Our heart breaks with empathy for the things that break his heart. Compassion is not a program. At the Meeting House, we talk about our compassion goals, and we sometimes use the word compassion to describe our mission. But compassion is not a program. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of living. And so as we bake in Jesus, we become more compassionate. We are formed more like him. We are more formed like this rather than like this. Look at your third question in your notes. What would my life look like if it were Jesus-shaped? Right? What would my life really look like if it was Jesus-shaped? And Jesus tells us many times in the Gospels in a number of different ways. We're just going to look at two verses. The first one, Mark 9:35. Whoever wants to be first must take last place and be the servant of everyone. What does a Jesus-shaped life look like? It looks like a servant. It looks like someone who sacrifices for someone else. That's what baking in Jesus forms us to be. Another verse, Luke 9:24. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. No one wants to lose their life. And this is what ends up happening. We have this choice to either pour our time, our money, and our attention into the things of Jesus, or to pour it into the things of this world. And this feels like saving our life, doesn't it? I'm comfortable, I have control, I feel good about my possessions and my image. This feels like saving our life. And when we don't do that, we pour ourselves into Jesus. It feels like we're losing our life. But he's inviting us to empty ourselves into him. And as we bake in him, some incredible things happen. There's another way of looking at it. Here's a grid that we can look at. The shape of God's kingdom versus the shape of this world. The shape of God's kingdom looks like other-centered love. And the shape of this world is self-centered entitlement. The shape of God's kingdom, concern for the vulnerable and those in the margins. And the shape of this world, concern for our personal comfort, image, and possessions. The shape of God's kingdom is about protecting those who are weak and lonely. And the shape of this world is self-protection of our rights and privileges. And as I look at my life, I know that there are many times that I am far more concerned about my comfort, my possessions, than I am concerned about giving my time and my money and my attention to those who are vulnerable. Whether they're in my neighborhood, whether they're in my city, whether they're somewhere on the globe. It just is so different. You cannot bake in this and look like this. I cannot bake in the values of this world and have a Jesus-shaped life. It just doesn't work that way. And so we have to ask ourselves, how are we shaped? If someone was to look at my life, what shape would they see? Would they say, Krista, I don't actually see you having a Jesus-shaped life. I'm not really sure by the way that you've poured your life, you've spent your money, you've used your time, the things you pay attention to. I'm not actually sure that looks like Jesus. It actually kind of looks like everything else. I mean, it's kind of serendipitous in a way that the muffin tin is the image of this world. I mean, aren't we all about ourselves, sort of individual pockets? We only really care for ourselves and we kind of end up looking like everybody else. And the Jesus-shaped life is very different. And the last question in your notes, do I ever finish baking in Jesus? The short answer is no. Not on this side of heaven. Not until Jesus returns with full perfection and everything is completely redeemed. We're in this constant state of baking. We're this constant state of being changed and being renewed and being transformed. The Apostle Paul gives us a real glimpse into what this process, this journey is like. In Ephesians 5:1, you can see it there on the slide. Imitate God. This is Paul saying, imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. Imitate your life. Mimic your life. Act like Jesus. There's a really interesting nuance to this passage in the Greek. It basically is like, be constantly in the process of becoming. Be constantly in the process of imitating Jesus. And we know what that life looks like. It's a life of love and sacrifice. And my favorite part of that verse is the very end. It is like a pleasing aroma to God. Is not one of the best smells in the world walking into like a bakery or your home after someone's cooked brownies or chocolate chip cookies or something? It's like heaven. It's the best smell ever. As we bake in Jesus, as we pour our lives into him, our time, our money, our attention, and we bake in him, something beautiful happens, something changes. We don't remain like batter. We are transformed, and there's this beautiful aroma. And here's the craziest thing of all. We actually all smell different. We just smell really good. You might smell like a lemon cake. You might smell like a vanilla cake. You might smell like a butterscotch cake. And I might smell like a chocolate cake. It all smells really, really good. But we've all been given unique gifts. We've all been given this diversity that God wants to use. Each one of us. The form that we take is Jesus. But the aroma is diverse, and it's beautiful, and it's good. And it points to God's goodness and God's love. When people come into contact us, they're like, there's something different here. It's really good. Look at those Christians over there. I mean, that is our witness. But we need to be intentional. It is much more difficult to think our way into acting, right? I can't just sort of sit here and stare and hope that that batter gets into one of those pans. I have to act my way into a new way of living. It's intentional. I have to do something. The reality is, if I just sort of lack intentionality on all these things, call it inertia, call it the lowest common denominator, call it human nature, we will automatically, even when we're not trying, we'll pour ourselves into the values and things of this culture. We won't be pouring ourselves into the things of Jesus unless we're intentional about it. So let's get intentional about it. Why don't you take out your dine-in? That's in your notes there. God has given our church family the people and the resources to care for others in some very significant ways. We know why we should care. Right? You cannot look in Scripture, Old Testament, New Testament, without absolutely walking away knowing what God's heart is for the vulnerable, for the lonely, for the marginalized. You can't look at Jesus' life and sort of ask yourself, I really wonder what that guy was about. We know why we should care. We know what we should care about. We sometimes sort of want to go, la, 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 I don't really want to know. But we don't have to look very far in our neighborhoods, in our cities, and in this world to know that there is deep need, extremely vulnerable people who are in need of the compassion of Christ. They're in need of people who have Jesus-shaped lives, who are giving time and money and attention to those things, just like Jesus did when he came into contact with people in need. So here's the most important question of all, and the most challenging one. How will my time, my money, and my attention be poured into imitating Jesus and living more compassionately? How will my time, my money, my attention be poured into imitating Jesus and living a compassionate life? And that's the question. I mean, the Jesus-shaped life just doesn't happen. We have to ask ourselves, how do we do this? So when we talk about our mission, yes, we're talking it as a collective Meeting House family, but it's all about us as individuals. I have to ask myself, how am I pouring my life into Jesus? In home church this week, you're going to be spending time, as we all are, my young adult home church, love them. We're going to be processing through a number of questions. And why don't you flip over your notes? You're going to see some of those questions on the back. And we're actually going to process just a couple of them right now, okay? This is sort of helps us get laser-like focus on our own lives, all of these questions. But we're just going to process a few of them. The first one, my relationship with Jesus. What am I giving to this relationship? And what am I holding back? Just like any normal relationship, if I want to get to know someone, if I want to build a friendship with someone, I want to spend time with them. I want to share my heart with them. I want them to talk to me, and I want to listen to them. I want to do life with them. That's how you build a normal friendship, a normal relationship. And so it is with Jesus. What are we doing to spend time with him? How are we sharing our lives with him? What is he saying to us? Are we even giving ourselves the time to listen? I will tell you that my motivation to pour my life into him, it only happens when I have a relationship with him. You have to have the tin before you pour any of your life into him. And so my motivation is, the stronger my relationship is with Jesus, the more motivated I am to pour my whole life into him. And there are certain times in my life where I'm less motivated or more motivated. And the correlation there is, how am I doing with Jesus? It's a real relationship. So we have to ask ourselves those questions. Under my money, take a look at those first two questions. The first one, have I got a handle on my budget? And do I like where my money is going? Now you can't answer, do I like where my money is going, until you can answer the first question, I know where my money is going. But maybe the very first step that you and I need to take is to figure out, where is my money going? Maybe by the time you hit the end of November, that can be your intentional next step to say, before I pour my money into Jesus, I got to know where it's currently going. And if you need help with that, ask, because it's really, really important. In the wealthy, affluent West, where we all live, we are the rich. If you make $35,000 a year, you are in the top 5 richest percent of the people in the whole world. And if you make $55,000 a year, you are in the top 1% of the world's richest people. And so we at the Meeting House, as a family, we are loaded. We are loaded with resources. Make no mistake, we have been given so much that giving our money away is one of the most spiritual acts of worship that we can give to honor God with our lives. It is a big part of our life. We have been given so much. People who have less material wealth, this may not be their biggest act of worship. But for us, we have to pay attention to this stuff. Second question there under money. What is one area in my spending that I am feeling convicted to change? It's the worst question in the world. Right? It's like, I don't want to answer that. And we have to ask ourselves that. I mean, what are we feeling convicted in our spending to change? And it's not me who's convicting you. I mean, I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. Right? It's not me convicting you. It's the Spirit convicting. And so what are we feeling convicted to change? If every single person who is watching and listening to this message, it's well over 5,000, 6,000 people. If we all stopped and answered that question and then got very intentional about freeing up this new sense of new resources, right? Not spending, but freeing up new resources to give it away, to pour it into Jesus, unbelievable things would happen. I don't even know if we have an imagination for it. But unbelievable things could happen. If we just ask that question, what am I feeling convicted to change in my spending habits? And then to do it. Like we said, it is all about being intentional. The Jesus-shaped life, the Jesus-shaped cakes, they don't just happen. The intentionality, when we talk about our mission, right? We've been processing this fantastic new mission that we're on as a church family to transform so that others would be transformed. That is really just intentionality boxed up in something that we're calling a mission. It is the intentionality of linking arms together, facing one direction, encouraging one another, so that we have the discipline and focus to pour ourselves into the things of Jesus as opposed to pouring ourselves into the things of this world. That's all that this mission is about. That's why we have a mission, so that we can do it together. Because if you're asking me to do this by myself, it's going to be really difficult. And I will probably pour more of myself over here. But that's the beauty of mission. We link arms together and we go for it. And so if you haven't heard about our mission at all, I want to encourage you to get to Home Church, because we're going to be talking about them. Pick up something, the pledge card at their information tables after the service. Go onto our mission website, mission.themeetinghouse.com. I mean, there's plenty of information to be found out. And you know, we have been talking about our partnerships from a compassion perspective over the last number of years. We've learned about Mennonite Central Committee, and we're going to continue to grow that relationship. I'm going to talk more about that in the new year when we do our AIDS Care Drive in February. We've talked about our local compassionate partnerships, and you'll see in your notes some of the goals. We want every home church, every person to be involved in meaningful relationship connections. But today I want to talk a little bit about our partnership with World Vision. And if you remember, this time last year, we sponsored 1,000 children from a community in Malawi called Momposa. So I want to share a little bit about my time in Momposa because I went there this past summer. Before I share a little stories, let's watch a video.
Malawi, ever heard of it? Maybe you have, but how much do you know about it? Well, Malawi is in southern Africa, right between Tanzania and Mozambique. It's around 13,000 kilometers from Ontario. That's about the distance someone commuting from Hamilton to Oakville every day would travel in a year. From one end to the other, it's about the same distance as driving from Sarnia to Montreal. And Malawi has about half of the population of Canada. Half of that is under the age of 18. Only 42% move on past primary school, and of these students, 25% drop out before graduation. It is one of the most HIV-affected countries in the world. 12% of the adult population lives with HIV. The average life expectancy is 52 years old, and the capacity of the health sector is extremely limited. There's one doctor for every 50,000 people. Last year, World Vision challenged the Meeting House to do something to change this.
I'm here because I want you to sponsor a child in a place like Malawi. I'm asking you to support a child because that has eternal significance. I'm asking you to make a commitment of $1.25 a day, $40 a month. You're going to change a kid's life.
Within the first day, over 450 children had been sponsored, and that number continued to grow to over 1,000. What makes this story even more amazing is that all of these children belong to the same community. Because of your sponsorship in M-Posa, 342 more children started attending community-based childcare centers. 83 additional preschool caregivers were trained. 22 primary school teachers were trained to improve the quality of education. 243 underweight children were treated for malnutrition. 50% of the children under 5 are sleeping under mosquito nets. 679 children under 1 year old were vaccinated against preventable diseases. 5 new boreholes were drilled in the community to provide safe drinking water. Malawi may be far away, but World Vision has helped us shorten the distance. Supporting the community of M-Posa is one of the ways we care and show God's love.
And you're not a Christian just because you say yes to certain doctrinal truths. You've got to do more than that. You've got to commit your life and say, here I am, Lord, take me, fill me, use me to do your work and will in the world. You got to go that route.
So I saw some incredible things, specifically because of those of us who've sponsored children from this community, these sponsorship dollars at work, just incredible things. And I'm going to be sharing a lot more story. I'm going to be doing some roundtable podcasts. I'm going to be writing some things on our compassion blog. But I want to share with you the thing that stood out to me the most, the thing that sort of blew me away. I had the privilege of going in August on behalf of a few families from the Meeting House who sponsored children in M-Posa. They had sent pictures and some stickers and some cards, and we can show a picture up there. I visited a few different children. You can see them sort of holding up there. And in the middle is my sponsor child, Fazila. Now, I was in M-Posa a year ago. So not this past summer, but a year ago. I was both. And a year ago, I was there just for a day because we were sort of doing our final prep work on this new partnership. And so I met Fazila then and a few other children. And so this past summer, when I went back, of course, I saw her again. And it was wonderful sort of driving up to the home and seeing her family outside. And we were all quite excited. And I wrote Fazila this past year and received some pictures. And so I was really excited to see her again. And as she was sort of coming towards me, someone said, "Fazila, do you know who this is?" Pointing to me. And she said, "Yes, it's my best friend." That's humbling. That's really humbling. And what was more amazing to me, though, was this other moment, which was completely unorchestrated and unexpected. I was at the borehole, this new borehole that was drilled, with the women who were celebrating, and we were talking about it, and all of a sudden, a little boy comes running up to me with a picture in his hand. Let's just show you a picture of that little boy. Okay, his name is Toko. And I met Toko actually a year ago. And I gave him this picture, but I wasn't expecting it because Toko comes running up to me, and I look down, and who do I see in the picture? Because I didn't recognize him right away, if I'm being honest. It was Sandra Nicholas, our site support pastor, who is a good friend of mine. And I immediately realized that I gave this picture. This is the boy I met last year, and here is this picture. And I just was completely, I didn't know what I was really looking at. And I said, "Do you know who this is?" And he said, "Yes, it's Sandra." And it was like in those moments, I realized that the Lord is knitting our communities together. That Fazila and Toko know who Sandra and Krista are. And Sandra and Krista know who Fazila and Toko are, and we're able to go back and forth. And that is happening hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times over in our community. That the Lord is knitting something very important. This whole next mission is about making it relational. when it comes to our care goals. Compassion's not a program, it's not writing a check, it is a relationship. It's a lifestyle. And it's remarkable what's happening. Now, we also met another family, and the little girl's name is Esther, and she is sponsored by a family from our Oakville site community. So let's watch this video to meet this family.
We are really thankful to the sponsors in Canada, especially the Meeting House Church. I wish they had that chance to see the smile of those in need, that they have brought that smile on their face.
Who do you think are in the pictures?
Esther.
Esther is in the pictures. Shall I show you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Here we go. Okay, here's the picture.
That kind of stopped my heart when I saw those photos. Super humbling.
I mean, you see a picture of Esther, and she doesn't look that different from children that you see around here. And seeing her just live her life, you know, there's no better inspiration than that, really.
Natalie, we've got some video too.
What video?
Here we go. This is when I meet Esther.
Excellent.
And I'm so happy to meet you. And when I go back home, I'm going to tell them all about my visit with you. Is this from? This is Alice and Wayne and Catherine, and Natalie and Catherine. So that's one picture. And then here's another. Well, that picture right there. And then I will give them this. This is so beautiful. When did you draw this? When did you draw this?
Today.
You drew this today? Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I will give that to them when I go back home for sure.
Same thing.
Is this the same thing as that one?
See this?
Did Krista bring it for us?
She drew that today. She drew that today.
The day you were there.
Beautiful.
I love it.
You love it?
Share it with them. You know, looking at Esther's life, it's like, you know, she's clearly happy. She's surrounded by love, and you know, we just want that to continue. We want to be a part of that. It's hard to really think of reasons that you wouldn't want to get involved in something like this. You know.
I think it's had a huge impact on our kids, and out of that, it's affected me probably in a more real way than I was aware of at the start.
Show me the picture you're making for Esther. Can you hold it up to me? Let me see.
It's not finished.
Oh, it's okay, but what is it?
Tree.
And what's on the tree?
Leaves. And there's some on the ground.
Because it's autumn, right? Who's that for, Catherine?
Esther.
Esther.
Pray that she be healthy and be safe. And we hope she never is sick.
Why wouldn't you want to be a part of something that is transforming lives in a community that the Meeting House is invested in?
I'd love for Esther and her family to know the Meeting House by name, to know who we are and that we are just fully behind them and supporting them.
You are doing a great job. Great job. It's only in heaven when we meet Jesus that we see yeah, glad to see that it was not all that simple. It's a job well done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not all that simple, but Jesus will say, job well done. If you sponsor a child from Mamposa or any child that you sponsor, would you please write them? We have made it very, very easy. On our website, themeetinghouse.com/worldvision, see the address in your notes. We've given you tips and tricks and addresses and everything you will ever need to know to write your child. As a part of our next mission, even on the pledge card, it says, I plan to email and write my World Vision child X number of times per year. This is how we make it relational. This is how we pour our time and our attention into something. So write your child. If you have not sponsored a child and you would like to from Mamposa, today we still have 300 children that we need to find sponsors for Mamposa. So let's just do it. Let's just get these 300 children sponsored. They're the last 300 children in the community that are looking for sponsors, and so we have the opportunity to do that. If we have more than 300 people who want to sponsor children, no problem, because there is a new community right next door to Mamposa called Chambo, and we have children that are available for sponsorship there as well. So sponsor a child. Whatever your next step is, it may not be that, but check yourself and ask yourself, how am I going to be intentional? How am I going to pour my life into Jesus so that he can transform me and use me for his purposes? Tim asked a question last week. What do I want my life to look like at the end of this mission? Well, let's break it down. Let's ask ourselves this one simple question. Will my life be more shaped like Jesus by Christmas? If I ask myself that question, there's only two answers. Yes, my life is shaped more like Jesus, or no, it's not. My prayer is that we would pour ourselves into Jesus, that we would bake in him, that he would be transforming us, and that this beautiful, fragrant offering is offered, pointing to the goodness of God. Let's pray. Father, we love you, and we just simply offer ourselves to you, our time, our money, and our attention. That's what we have to offer, and so I pray that we would just open ourselves up to pouring ourselves into you, knowing that you will do great things. Thank you for the privilege it is to partner with you in this way. We love you so much, and we pray this in your name. Amen.